Shoppers in the United States sent back $890 billion of merchandise in a single year. That's 16.9% of everything retail sold. And the free label sitting in that box is not free. Returns logistics firms estimate a $50 return costs a retailer $21 to $33 to process, which can be two-thirds of what you paid for the thing in the first place. Nobody eats that cost out of kindness. It's already inside the price you paid, spread across every customer, including those who never send anything back. So when a jacket costs $80 instead of $65, that gap is a bet on how likely you are to return it. Here's how that bet gets priced and who loses it. Think about who's actually funding that free label. It isn't the retailer, because the retailer sets the price. It isn't the shipping carrier, because the carrier bills for every leg. It's the customer who ordered one size, kept it, and never thought about the return policy at all. That customer is the most profitable person in the entire system, and they're paying a surcharge they never agreed to. Every product on that site carries a small premium built from the expected cost of returns across all buyers. If a category runs a 25% return rate, 1 in 4 units generates a second shipping leg, a second handling pass, an inspection, a repackage, and often a markdown. Those costs get averaged and folded back into the sticker price for everyone. So the shopper who orders 3 sizes of the same dress, keeps 1, and sends 2 back isn't getting away with anything sneaky. They're using the policy exactly as designed. It's just that the design quietly bills the difference to the person standing next to them in line, the one who ordered a single item and kept it. That's the trade the industry made, and for about 15 years it looked like a genuinely brilliant one. Free returns removed the last real friction in online shopping. If you can't touch the fabric, can't try the shoe, can't see whether the color is really that color, the return policy is the thing that lets you click buy anyway. Retailers weren't being generous. They were buying conversion rate. The problem is, what happened to the other side of the ledger once shoppers learned the game? Follow one hoodie backwards and the economics stop being abstract. You drop the box at a carrier point. That's leg 1. And somebody pays the freight, usually the retailer at a negotiated rate that is still real money. The box goes to a return center, not the warehouse it's shipped from. Because returns need different handling than outbound orders. Somebody opens it. Somebody confirms the item matches the order, checks for wear, checks for the tags, checks that the box actually contains a hoodie and not a brick. Then the item needs a decision. Is it sellable as new? If yes, it needs to be steamed or refolded, repackaged in fresh polybag, relabeled, and moved back into sellable inventory, which means it has to travel again to whichever fulfillment center has space. If it's slightly worn, it can't go back at full price, so it gets routed to an outlet channel or a resale partner at a fraction of retail. If it's damaged, it goes to liquidation or to waste. Every one of those steps is a person, a building, and a truck. That's why returns processing firms put the all-in cost so high relative to the item value. And the further down the price ladder the item is, the worse the math gets, because inspection labor costs roughly the same, whether the item is a $200 coat or a $14 phone case. Then there's the part nobody sees on the invoice. Time. A summer dress returned in early August isn't a summer dress anymore by the time it's back in sellable inventory. It's a markdown waiting to happen. In fashion especially, the clock is the biggest cost in the whole chain, and returns burn weeks of it. The industry has a word for ordering multiple sizes or colors intending to keep one. It's called bracketing, and consumer surveys from return software companies have put the share of online shoppers who do it around 60% or higher. Bracketing is not fraud. It's a rational response to an incentive the retailer created. If sizing is inconsistent across brands, and it is, and the return is free, and it is, then ordering 2 sizes is simply cheaper for you than guessing wrong and doing a second order. You're optimizing. The retailer taught you to. But look at what bracketing does to the unit economics. A single customer intent, meaning one hoodie actually wanted, now generates 3 outbound units, 3 picks, 3 packs, potentially 3 separate shipments, and 2 returns. The revenue is 1 hoodie. The logistics load is 5 movements. On a category with thin margins to begin with, that flips a profitable order into a losing one. And it compounds. Because bracketing raises return rates, and higher return rates raise the return premium baked into prices, and higher prices make shoppers more careful about buying the wrong thing, which makes them bracket more. The system trains its own worst-case behavior. This is the part where the phrase hidden economics stops being a figure of speech. Nobody at any point makes a decision to charge you more for other people's returns. The mechanism does it automatically through the pricing model in a way that never appears on any receipt. If you're finding this useful, subscribing genuinely helps this channel keep digging into the parts of the economy that hide in plain sight. It costs you nothing, and it takes one tap. And you'll want to be around for the next part because the returned hoodie you've been following does not go back on the shelf nearly as often as you think. In fact, for a huge share of returns, putting it back on the shelf is the option that loses the most money. Here's the number that reframes everything. Returns optimization firms have estimated that only about half of returned merchandise gets resold at full price. The rest goes somewhere else. The reason is pure arithmetic. Once a retailer knows it costs, say, $25 in labor, freight, and handling to bring an item back into sellable condition, that item has to be worth meaningfully more than $25 for the effort to make sense. A $90 pair of boots clears the bar easily. A $22 shirt does not. For a large slice of the catalog, restoring the item to inventory destroys value. So retailers built an entire secondary economy for everything below the line. Some goes to liquidation. Bulk pallets of mixed returns are sold by weight or by lot to wholesalers, often for single-digit percentages of original retail. That's where those bin stores came from. The ones that sell everything for $7 on Friday, $5 on Saturday, dropping by the day until the bin is empty. Those bins are almost entirely returned e-commerce inventory that nobody could economically restock. The whole business model exists because the reverse logistics math failed upstream. Some goes to specialist resellers who refurbish and relist, taking a cut, and some goes to waste. Optoro, a returns technology company, has estimated that returns in the United States generate billions of pounds of landfill waste and millions of metric tons of carbon dioxide a year. Treat that as an industry estimate rather than a government count, because it is one. But even a fraction of it tells you the shape of the problem. The free return isn't a neutral undo button. It's a second full shipping journey plus a meaningful chance the item is destroyed at the end of it. There's a policy that gives the whole game away. Increasingly, you return something and the retailer refunds you and tells you to keep the item or donate it. It feels like a windfall. It's actually the company telling you, in the clearest possible terms, that your item is worth less than the cost of getting it back. That's a returnless refund, and major retailers including Amazon and Walmart have used versions of it. The trigger is a threshold. When expected recovery value drops below the sum of freight, inspection, and handling, the rational move is to eat the item and skip the logistics entirely. Sit with what that implies about pricing. If a company can hand you a product for free and still come out ahead versus processing the return, then the margin structure on that product was never about the physical thing. It was about volume, about the ad-driven acquisition of your order, and about a cost of goods low enough that giving one away is cheaper than a truck ride. The returnless refund is also, quietly, an admission about the earlier claim. If the return was genuinely free, there'd be nothing to avoid. Now add the people gaming it deliberately. The National Retail Federation, working with fraud analytics partners, estimated that around $103 billion of returns in a recent year were fraudulent or abusive, on the order of 15% of all returns. Again, that's an industry estimate built from retailer surveys, so hold it loosely. But the categories inside it are well documented. There's wardrobing, buying a dress or a suit, wearing it once to the event, and returning it. There's receipt fraud and stolen goods returns, converting shoplifted merchandise into store credit. There's the empty box return, where the package that comes back contains something of roughly the right weight and nothing else. And there's the fastest growing one, which is straight up lying about delivery, claiming an item never arrived and collecting the refund. Every dollar of that leaks into the same place as everything else in this episode, the price. Which is why what happened next was inevitable. Starting a few years ago, the industry began charging. Zara introduced a small fee for returning online orders through drop-off points in the UK. H&M and other fast fashion retailers followed with similar charges. Some US retailers began deducting a flat fee, often around $5 to $7, from refunds for mailed returns. Amazon started applying a $1 fee when customers chose a further drop-off location instead of a free one closer by. Surveys of retail operators have reported that a clear majority now charge for at least some return paths. And the quieter change is the scoring. Companies like The Retail Equation sell return authorization systems to large chains, building a profile of your return behavior across visits. If your pattern looks abnormal, the system can decline your return even when the policy technically permits it. Online, the equivalent is account-level intervention. Warnings for unusual return rates, loss of free return privileges, or in extreme cases, account closure. So the policy that was universal and unconditional turned into something conditional and personalized. Not a rule anymore. A risk assessment about you specifically. That's the real shift. Free returns weren't canceled. They were converted into a privilege you can lose, granted by a score you can't see, computed from behavior you were encouraged to adopt. Put the whole chain together and the picture is clean. The price on the tag is not the cost of the object. It's the cost of the object plus the expected cost of everyone's returns in that category, plus the expected loss from fraud, plus the expected markdown on units that come back unsellable. You pay all of it up front, at purchase, whether or not you ever use the policy. Which means there are two kinds of customers on every site. The ones who return at or above the category average, who are getting a service worth more than they paid for it. And the ones who return rarely or never, who are paying a premium for a service they'll never use. The second group is much larger, quieter, and has no idea it's subsidizing anything. That's not a scandal. It's insurance, and it's how insurance always works. The only unusual thing is that nobody calls it that, nobody prices it visibly, and you never get the option to decline the coverage and pay less. So when a retailer announces a return fee, the honest read isn't that they're being greedy. It's that they're unbundling. They're moving a cost that used to be socialized across every buyer onto the specific buyers who generate it. The uncomfortable part is that unbundling almost never comes with the corresponding discount for everyone else. The fee gets added. The premium stays in the price. That's the actual answer to what a free return costs. It costs about a third of the item's value in logistics, roughly half a chance the item never sells at full price again, a real quantity of carbon, and a permanent surcharge on the sticker price of every single thing sold next to it, which is the same trick as the shelf. The cost was already inside the price before you touch the product. You are not being given anything. You are being charged in advance. That's the supermarket episode. It's on screen now. Go watch it.